I guess. Let me just get a new guest. Okay, little break, 60 seconds, and I got a guy that is not a guy, he's a man that really I think he was a leader. He's a leader in discovering and exposing the New World Order before even the internet was out there. Okay, and he's been kind of a father of the militia movement in America. His name is Mark Kornke from Michigan. Let me try to get him on. Stay here, do not go away. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with Luca Zanna.
Awaken the warrior in you with Scotty, the new AR-15 rifle by Zanna Enterprises LLC. I am Scotty, Norse goddess of winter, hunting, and just revenge. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I am chambered in 223 Wild and can shoot 556 NATO and 223 Remington. My trigger is crisp and fast. An average of 4 pounds out of the box. Call me a fast girl. I can shoot over 5 rounds in 1 second. But I'm focused too. With only iron sights and no bench, I can hit 1 square inch at 25 yards. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I bow down to no one. I am independent. I am fierce. I am a warrior. My Viking spirit has been reborn in a fabulous new body, all made in the USA. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I am Scotty. I can withstand a loaded Humvee running over me and still look pretty. I am Scotty. Find me at www.ar15shop.us. I am Scotty. 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 Find me at www.ar15shop.us. I am Scotty.
Here we go, guys and girls. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. This is the second part of the second hour. As I said before, it's this is a long-term struggle, and we always need new blood. And the way sometimes we get into this fight, when we have the opportunity to be learning some of the things, and then have an inspiration, and at that point say, "Wow!" And this is the way I got in. I came to America in 1998. I was kind of clueless on many things. Yeah, I didn't want to be bossed around by the Italian government, but still, I thought America was almost perfect. And it is compared to other parts of the world. Don't get me wrong, at least the foundation was much better than anybody else, any other country in the world. But then when you start to learn the magic word, global government, New World Order, so what is hell? What is that stuff? And if I had to put on my, right hand, 5 people who gave me the opportunity to learn, to wake up, to really go deep down into this rabbit hole, one of them is Mark Kornke. I was, the first YouTube videos I was able to get, talking about the New World Order and police state. I mean, this is way before even the internet. These videos, they were on VHS, okay? Somebody was able to put them up in YouTube and just learning about this stuff. I said, wow. And it really was kind of a cultural shock for me. It was kind of a rude awakening, but I'm very grateful because, as I said, this is a continuation. It's we always need new blood. And if today I'm here, even with my limitations on these airwaves, try to wake up wherever I can wake up. And it's not just about, the new legislation. This is about a bigger picture, global tyranny. And I want to thank Mark Kornke to give me the opportunity to learn a lot of things just watching his videos. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you. By the way, we had a few last year at this point, I think more than 1 year ago, interesting interview about different things that were happening, Jade Helm, and I really believe Jade Helm is never really ended, my opinion. What do you think about Jade Helm since we talked last time?
Well, interestingly enough, since we're obviously the subject that's on everybody's mind is Las Vegas, in many ways, if we look at what they were proposing with Jade Helm, we've seen many of the components with the Las Vegas shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, location, location, location. It's like anything else in real estate. Los Angeles is in a desert, but it's still it's a vast, semi-populated area originally. When Hollywood was established, it was established to run from the law. In fact, it was running from Edison. That's how Hollywood showed up and ended up in Hollywood, California, of course, in the Los Angeles basin. What's interesting is Las Vegas, let's not forget, never existed until the crime bosses needed a place to go where there was no law. So you have an optimal location here where crime, of course, built a city. And then, well, it seems that crime and government always seem to go hand in hand. Not opposite to each other, but they tend to gravitate and work together with mutual cooperation. And if you remember with Jade Helm, the idea was to infiltrate, work an area, operate from, in other words, pressure from below, pressure from above, operate from below and working an area, and then bringing the operation and having the finger on the pulse of the population. Well, Las Vegas is completely cameraed. It's completely manipulated by a very small faction who have absolute control. It's money. Okay, all the key components to make sure that you have a complete laboratory control point or a complete choke of all information, the restriction of information, restriction of data, restriction of movement, physical restriction on security. In other words, you can't defend yourself. Well, you and I can't. The powers that be, the royalty, they certainly are allowed to at their discretion. And again, so the situation that you see, as with what was warned about with Jade Helm and many of the other precursor organizational FTXs, field training exercises, or field operations, culminate in these what are basically controlled sacrifice or controlled attack events. And the only place where they're going to work now is someplace like this. Because otherwise, the one thing that's happened even in just the last year and then the year before that, and of course for the last several years, people progressively are waking up. People are not passively waiting. Some people are hunting for an event or watching for an event like this. And that's bad if it's a staged event because, well, they lose play actors. They lose the characters who were supposed to go in, do the dirty deed, and maybe not get out. So Los Angeles, would be a big-scale version of that, harder for them to do, but they have good control there. So, in fact, fog in numbers does the job. In Las Vegas, it's not as big, but it certainly is totally controlled. If, as needed, the cameras get shut off. The cops are told to turn a blind eye. In some cases, just freeze in place and wait, say, 50, 60, 70 minutes before they actually engage the problem, giving the real shooters or the real criminals the opportunity to completely leave the site, and then for the crime scene to be discovered as it's been fabricated.
Yeah, I mean, is this true? I was thinking about the same pretty much. I mean, that's one of the most artificial environment in the middle of nowhere, like almost a Truman movie, that it's all artificial. I mean, they can give you also the snow if they want in the middle of the night, or in the middle of the day with the sun if they want to. Think about it. The most secure, technically, place if they wanted to make it secure, because there are cameras everywhere. It's something that not even in some government places you can find such a tight security because you really don't have any Fourth Amendment there. You are in their properties. So they can do whatever they want. And you tell me, in the most secure place with all these cameras and technology, facial recognition, and an older man was able to move for 32 floors. I don't know how many guns. I lose the count. Really, it's ridiculous. 32, 24, 27. I don't know. Plus 2 windows that technically they are bulletproof windows, hurricane-proof windows. And at that point, become Rambo and shoot for I don't know how many minutes non-stop. Was something that sound, by the way, in my opinion, doesn't even sound like a 5.56. According to other guests I had, it's more like a 7.62 round. But regardless, what do you think really happened? It is your personal, professional, or even just opinion, according to the elements that we were able to watch from the internet. But there is a lot of good stuff we were able to have, like, for example, the audio and some videos, and also some logic, their contradiction. What do you think really happened here?
Well, we have a good overlapping database. I think some of the most interesting now, because digital has changed the quality of some of our reception, there's a video of a taxi driver, remember, that's right there at the hotel where the shooting is supposed to have been taking place, which,
Yes.
by the audio, it obviously part of it is. If you look at the video, this is the most important thing, even with a recopy of a recopy, there are 3 or 4 different medias being recorded in her video. The woman is driving a taxi cab. She's talking and, of course, recording the event personally on the cell phone. While she's recording on the cell phone, look on the dash. On the dash, we have a dispatch and we have a mapping chart. We actually have a little 5-inch GPS-type screen offering us all kinds of information. If you're careful and you bring it up, it cross-references a lot of what's being talked about in the video itself or that's being recorded. Another thing is in the background is the actual radio dispatch from the taxi company, which in and of itself proves, if you listen to the background conversations, everybody in town knew exactly where the gunfire was coming from, at least in the general area. They knew that it was both in the area, the surrounding area at first, but then they specifically mentioned the location. And in fact, there's another taxi cab driver who is out by the airport who flat out says, yes, the cops know it's in the Mandalay. They identify it by name as one of the locations, which is most critical. One of the locations, and there's overlapping information that indicates from more than a dozen. Well, then now you've got 50, 60, 100 different videos, and you've got private videos that aren't very long. But if you take all of these, you have a 3-dimensional image. In fact, 4-dimensional because up, down, left, right, forward, backward, but also time. This is especially critical in helping to be able to evaluate if you take your time and you study the information that's there. I personally believe this was a blood sacrifice, and I think a lot of people have picked up on this. It's not what they point at; it's what they don't point at. This was first of all, this event took place in Las Vegas. That's a crime syndicate facility. It's absolutely controlled. You pee in the lobby, you will be beat to death. You make a noise in a casino or one of these hotels, you're swarmed. Anybody ever been there?
Yeah.
If you create an incident, people you didn't think were security are security.
Yeah.
This is the other part of everybody. In fact, Washington, D.C. is the same way. Let me just parallel this. Remember the black woman who was attacked by security at one of the checkpoints, and then she drove away, and they were chasing her all over the place?
Yes.
Okay, there is a video, if you watch this, when they killed her, where when she pulls up to this one spot, there's character. He looks like he's a tourist of some kind. He's wearing the classic demi-tourist outfit. He's got shorts. He's got a flowery shirt on. And they're all walking along, and they're playing their little zombie, parts, like right out of that movie you were just talking about. And when she shows up, all of a sudden, all these characters aren't just tourists. There's cops, there's uniformed cops, there's black uniformed, Kevlar-wearing cops, there's gray uniformed cops, there's blue, and then all these other characters who are in civilian clothes who are all fakes. It's just like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they've got guns pulled, and they're all out there. Guys, there's dozens of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about Vegas is exactly the same way. Just like you said, there is a whole cast in every building. There's a security force. It's a paid army.
Yeah.
In the whole town or in every district section, there are quadrennial forces that are used, that are on hand, that are part of the police department, but they're at the beck and call of the casinos. You've got the general police force / the local force. It's bought and paid for by the casinos. There's nothing that's done there without the organized crime that runs the place calling upon it as they need to. And if you show up there and you do something wrong, hell, even at the airport, there was a series of incidents over the last, 5 years, where they had a list and they were targeting veterans coming to Vegas. And I touched on this 4 years ago when it happened because it started to happen really serious, where the cops would zero in and, the guy'd be standing there, he'd say something, and the guy'd look at his little iPad, his little phone, or whatever he was holding, and all of a sudden here's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's 7 more, and then there's 7, and by the time you're done, there's 20 cops on one guy in the time it took for me to describe what just happened.
Yeah.
That's what Vegas is. So all of a sudden you're going to tell me that, you hear pop, 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 pop. And I guess the best example is going back to that taxi cab driver's video. She's right there at the Mandalay. I don't know, Luca, if you've watched that. Have you seen that particular one in its full length?
Yes, I saw. I watched that. Go ahead.
Okay, you're in a lobby, and you can hear gunfire.
Yeah.
Would you be standing there, okay, acting nonchalant? Let me give you the best example. There's a guy standing there who's in classic military pose. Now, no, I'm not talking puffing up and with his legs spread apart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about a guy who's leaning up against one of the posts. The gunfire, you can just hear. You just heard on her machine. Oh, boom, 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 boom. Now, for me, everybody in the lobby is what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There's no. Did you see a line of 4, 5, or 6 guys running towards some place, like going past because you can see through that building.
Mm.
Did you see them running past the main desk? Did you see the main desk look like they're upset?
No, I saw.
Did you see?
You're right. Go ahead.
Everybody is askew. That's what tells me that's the crew making sure, and people are going to go, huh? The crew in the lobby are staying calm because they all know what's going on because they're part of what's happening.
So you think I want to know straightforward, and that's why in the show we need to have an open mind about everything, and no people say, oh, what are you talking about? After I learned about 9/11, I say I have an open mind about everything. I want to ask you straightforward. So you think all this was a simulation and maybe it was not even a real shooting?
No, this was real. No, this wasn't a simulation. No, this was a murder. There's people trying to claim this didn't happen.
People died.
This was a blood sacrifice. This was the 1st of October.
Yes.
Which is Red October. The communists were planning on a 100-year anniversary celebration attack on America. That's what I personally think we're in the middle of, but they're now flustered, and I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
Because this happened, this was a Yom Kippur sacrifice. What was going on? What was the weekend? A Yom Kippur blood sacrifice that day, okay? It was also the Red Terror, the beginning of the Red Terror, the 1st of October. This is now, they claim, the worst shooting in American history. Wow, what a jump-off for the 1st of October, for Red October, and the 100th anniversary of the communist terror against the Christian community.
So you think
it's interesting that there's that big black pyramid sitting right there, and you're supposed to keep looking at that golden building over there to the left.
Yes.
This whole sacrifice took place in a postage stamp area, rectangular, not normally used. Here's another interesting thing about this. That site is not normally used for concerts. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Now, it's been used it was being used for concerts. But interestingly enough, they had only started this within a very short cycle most recently, and it's literally lined right up with that pyramid.
Mm.
Who was in the Luxor that night? What events were taking place in the Luxor over the weekend? How many people were there? Well, who were they? In fact, there's no discussion about running over to the Luxor and getting a microphone, and, say a mic, and going, hey, were you in here? What was it like out there? Mm. You'll notice there are no interviews and no discussions with anybody who's in the Luxor.
Mm. Interesting.
Now, that it's not what's being said that we always need to pay attention to. It's when you have a hole in your database, and I've been watching. I've been looking for it. Hunt down. There's nobody standing up in the Luxor Hotel, say halfway up the pyramid, looking out, going, "Wow, there's something going on over there." What do you think that is? I don't know, Frank. What do you think that is, Jeff? I don't know. I believe that's because they sold tickets.
So
I believe that from the Luxor, being the occult site that it is, Black Pyramid, the whole 9 yards, I believe that, as far as what it's tied into, Vegas in general is tied into the occult, okay, and a lot of other things. In fact, they brag about it. Let's put something on the table here. You can't watch a movie about Vegas or a television series about Vegas or whatever about Vegas without somebody referencing or you seeing a scene where somebody's being taken out in the desert, having their brains blown out, and being buried in the desert. Think about it.
Yeah.
Point to me one that you haven't seen like that.
Yeah, it's true. It's mostly
that's part of the psychoses. I precondition you to be fearful of where you're going. I want you to be scared of who's in charge.
Yeah, it is true. I don't like Vegas. It's beyond the law enforcement. They're just like security guards, pretty much working for the corporations. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, think about this: the sheriff that you're seeing talking to everybody.
Yeah.
He's the sheriff that betrayed the Bundys.
Yeah.
Remember, he's the one that came out and shook, Clive Bundy's hand and, we're with you, and then brought an army out, but it was late because of the traffic jam, brought an army out to attack the protesters.
Yeah, I had the video,
But they
but I
didn't-
took photos with them. I got them on video, by the way. When it was on the highway, and I was able to go there. It was really like an army with armored vehicles, and I took some photos. I approached them. I'm glad that I didn't get somehow, I was a little concerned because I was there with the camera. But you're right, it is true. It is exactly that. Now my question is: so there are different aspects because I can look at this just as a government false flag, or at least some branch of the government try to destroy even more of our rights. But as you said, I think this goes deeper. It is more than just gun control. It is also some symbolic stage for something that maybe it's going to happen the next few months, or maybe just a ritual, as you say.
Actually,
they believe.
Or a few days. Actually, I think what happened is, here's the problem. They miscalculated a couple things. Number one, well, first of all, there's always an overlapping series of connective events. The gun control issue would be tied into it no matter what. Okay, in other words, if you read the Handgun Control Incorporated, national agenda for 1993, 1994, I have a copy of it. We actually went to it. Okay, we had people. We got in there to record it. We also got copies out.
Yes.
Well, in that they talk about using events and of course how to prop everything up for get the gun attack no matter what. Constantly get the guns. The objective is get them all. The period doesn't mean what angle you use, and constantly harp on this. Well, with an event like this, it only took hours, and of course immediately they had everything plugged in. From the occult end, remember, it's useful. I mean, if everything serves more than one purpose, that shows greater power.
Yes.
From the occult end, there's empowerment taking place.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
From the government end, more power. Had it worked, I think, the way it's supposed to, unfortunately, here's the thing. Everybody I talk to, I haven't found anybody who believes the official story at all. And I talk to people intentionally, go make little comments and wait to see what's going to happen. And what's really neat, you don't have to do as much talking anymore.
No.
People do not believe, and of course doesn't help that, well, wait a minute, their official story and what they came up with, now they're changing it, and now they're changing it again. Well, they usually do this, but they usually do it in such a way that they make it narrower and narrower. They have had to open it up the other direction, and they don't do that normally. That means that they know they've got their old, they got their fingers stuck in the rollers and they can't get them out. People are not believing any of their BS, and in fact, just the reverse attitude. People are like, wow, let's see what they're going to try to do to us next. I personally believe this was supposed to be the kickoff, but what's happened, the feedback and the immediate feedback, because they're listening, okay?
Yeah.
They're always listening. Everybody always brags about, it's futile to resist because they're listening. Well, here's the problem. They're listening, and most people are not going, oh, my goodness, I need to cower.
Exactly.
Instead, all they're hearing the clack of rifle bolts. They're hearing magazines being loaded.
You're right.
Yeah.
Listen, I agree with you. We have to go down. Let's go down with some pride and honor, okay? And at that point, they're coming after us no matter what.
Well, not only that, we'll win. Okay, here's my problem: is they know this too. They don't have enough to go around.
Yeah.
If they decided to kick it off, the only thing they can do is try to, and this is why I have grandiose events like this, to make it feel it's so big that you just can't do anything. What happens if everybody starts hunting them? See, right now this event was off the wall. In that most people, because of the conditioning, would be told, well, the police state is everywhere, the cameras are going to save you from everything, it's futile for everybody to resist, you can go out there and party hardy and be a total brainless animal, and you don't have anything to worry about, except once you're a brainless animal, you become a brainless, possibly herded animal.
Yeah.
And with this slaughter, example, things have come out from the vendors and everybody else. Normally, that caged-in area would be open. The gates would be open, etc. But at 10 o'clock, just before the planned sacrifice, they rolled all the gates shut and locked them, chained them.
That's true.
Now, this was totally contrary. Yeah, everybody's knowing this.
Wow.
So everybody, this is contrary to all of their. You set up and establish a modus operandi, okay? And then all of a sudden, there's a significant change. But that significant change is also tied into a disaster or a catastrophe. That's not accident. That's not. You see, they're trying to make you believe, well, it's just a happenstance. It just happened to my arse. That's all BS. We're past that now. If you can acknowledge that you've got crazy people who are power fanatics, they're Fruit Loops. These Fruit Loops are grasping for power. And there's 2 or 3 different factions fighting each other, and they're not for us. Not one of them that are fighting with each other are truly for you or me. Now, it would be beneficial for them to be fighting with each other, but here's the problem. Given the opportunity, both of them are going to do the same thing to you or me.
Yeah.
There's where everybody, that's what everybody's relating to now. So if they try to come out, and here's another problem they have. After you pull something like this, and if any ring knockers, government employees, or spies, spooks, and kooks are watching this, they're recognizing exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Now, they're seeing this as, why did they do that in Vegas? Vegas is our real estate. Vegas is under our control.
Yeah.
If they do that there, they do that to us. Everybody watch yourself. See, what happens is, it's like the Virginia Tech shooting, or it's like the Fort Hood shooting, or it's like, you see, the problem with these are institutional sites that are already under their control. Virginia Tech is a CIA front dummy, okay? They have massive CIA assets there. To have a shooter there and then have a shooter walk off of the Virginia Tech site and come back in, that's where a lot of the next generation of the spooks and kooks, they send their kids there, you know what I mean? The spies send their spy kids there to become the next generation of spies.
Okay.
Okay, just like University of Michigan, okay, CIA, NSA, Institute for Social Research. They go to these colleges. To have somebody come in and shoot them up, and then for everybody to recognize it's a planned shooter, that creates dissent or creates concern, and of course also in both anger and animosity and fear in their own ranks. So you have people inside the machine that are going to go, hey, watch for this. Whereas before they'd have had, by now, look at the date. We're on the 14th, going to the 15th of October.
Yes.
Red October. We're halfway through Red October. We've had one major event. That's impossible.
Yeah. So
okay, now why have we not had it? Think about this. Where did Antifa go? Where did the communists go that were bragging? Because this is their month, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Well,
why is it that for months and months, you and I have watched, Luca, we've watched them burning the country, right?
Yes.
Where'd they go for the last 15 days?
Yes. What do you think?
Where are they?
What exactly?
Yeah.
What do you think they are? I mean, maybe they're still there, but the news, of course, don't talk anymore about them.
Well, two things are happening. Number one, see, when you have rank and file in there, what we call organic sandbags, and they're cracking the whip on them, think of them like orcs, okay? Mm-hmm. What if the leaders of the orcs stop giving orders? Or tell everybody back, freeze. Okay, well, wait a minute. Why? Well, no, freeze. Everybody freeze. See, the communists that are on the street are the pressure from below. The communists that are in the black uniforms in government are the pressure from above. The best example of this is right there at the Berkeley or any of these other incidents where you've had people who are protesting who are conservative, no matter what term you want to use for it.
Yes.
They're the other side. They come in, the cops come in, search them, frisk them, take their signs away, and tell them you can't have this, because you could hurt somebody with it. And then the cops stand there, and then the communists show up with the same weapons and more, and start beating the snot out of everybody, and the cops are given the order, and the cops follow the order to walk away and let them murder.
That's true. That's true. That's unfortunate. Is that all happening? I mean, it happened.
So that's an example of the two armies out there, and you're not part of it. Okay, you and I. Now, why is this happening? Well, the cops like it. The communists think they're getting what they want, and of course, they're beating down the opposition. Which, in their little classes and all their background, they're told murder the Christians, kill the white people, kill the whatever. Take your pick, whatever it is that they're being coached for. They're all puffed up and pumped up, and in their little rooms they come from, they're all chanting, kill all the white people, or kill all the Christians, or kill America. They come out, and they're the useful, like I said, organic sandbags. They're not critical to the machine, but they're used by the machine. Now, the cops know this. That's why the cops are fully going along with this. That's why when you watch that thing in Berkeley, when that woman, that girl, she's like 95 pounds, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, she's getting butt stroked with 2x2s, they're beating on her, and there's 20 of them on her, and there's 3 or 4 little girls, and they run off to the side, but they're pressed up against this barrier the cops put up.
Yeah.
What are the cops doing? They're standing right there.
That's very
literally
sad,
on a little platform right above. They're looking Billy Bad Butt. They got body armor. They got helmets. They got face masks. They got gas masks. They got clubs. They've got tasers. They've got guns. They've got machine guns. And they don't lift a finger to help that little blonde-haired girl getting the snot beat out of her. In fact, they stand there and they're all smirking if you watch all those videos from Berkeley.
No, I do, and that's very disgusting. As I don't care if you're a cop or not, but as a cop, you should have at least it's your duty. It's your duty to defend anybody.
You were told you were going to do it.
Exactly.
In fact, they promised. Wait a minute, we're going to disarm you because don't worry, we're here to step in. And what did they do?
No, that's very sad.
You know what it's really like? It's just like that second battle in Braveheart, Luca.
Yeah, exactly. When the nobles just say, "Okay, too bad, you're gone," and they betray everybody.
It was arrogant too. Remember that scene? How they did it arrogantly?
Yes. After all, they are not nobles like us. Just let them die. We don't really. It's like disposable people.
They look at them, and they're looking snide, and they turn the horses slowly, and they walk away. They didn't ride away.
No.
They walk away because they know they can turn their back on your enemy, and they're not going to get an arrow in the back or a sword or anything. They can leave you to die.
So
that's what those cops do.
Every
time.
What do you think? Because I think, as I said, this is not just part of one isolated event. Of course, there are a lot of benefits for the globalists, starting from the gun control agenda. That's something we already know it's happening. And then, of course, more invasion of our rights. Now they want to put metal detectors everywhere, even in the bathrooms, probably. But my point is this something bigger? Because I really believe what we are facing now, this is my humble let's say analysis, okay? And I don't have the experience you have, but I'll tell you what I think, and tell me if I'm wrong. Or at least tell me what you think. I believe that we've been setting up here for World War III, a war that we're supposed to lose, and then finally we will give by our politicians, or at least some of our politicians, they've been creating this situation to put us, first of all, in a complete disadvantage, military and economic disadvantage. Then lose also the moral high ground, because when you go out around the world, bossing people around, and you somehow you create a war, at least you find yourself in a war, guess what? You look like the aggressor. And when you lose, what happens? Look in Japan. Look, for example, in Europe. I mean, they've been occupied for the last 70 years now. So that's my point. And I tell you exactly what I think. I think, for example, that, the President Obama before this was part in completely the final stage of this, let's say, red occupation, like almost in the TV series America with a K, that probably you watched that from CBS, I guess was. The idea that was, first of all, create this completely unilateral disarmament, or at least, we are to levels before World War II, where it comes down to our real overstretched armies. And then you have it to a point that they work behind the scene with the red parts of these communist governments of the world, in this case Russia, China, of course, Korea just going to be their puppy dog. And at the end, we're going to face, somebody like Trump. They're going to put us in this final, facing the bully that would be, let's say, Korea. And then we don't realize that, or maybe we realize, but, maybe we underestimate, or it's part of the plan. We're going to be surrounded between Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, southern border in Alaska. You got Russia, Chinese on the west coast, and we're going to become surrounded by 20, 30 million soldiers ready to occupy America and finally bring it down. Is it too crazy what I'm thinking here? Or maybe we're onto something?
No, actually, you're right on the money. As far as what they would like to accomplish, there are two issues that need to be dealt with, and the first one is a betrayal of inside the country. The disarmament plan that they were thinking they were going to execute is not been accomplished. Every aspect of what we do. Think about it since the last time I was on the air here. How many times has something happened and the very first thing that comes out of their face isn't worried about the casualties or whatever? They give that barely any lip service, and immediately it's get the guns. No matter what it is, it's get the guns. Because, See, the bottom line is that, pre-World War II, we should remind everybody of this. Pre-World War II, England, 1927, banned and confiscated guns. Canada, banned and confiscated guns.
Yeah.
Australia, banned and confiscated guns. You know what happened by the beginning of World War II? They were begging us to send anything we could, including muzzleloaders and BB guns.
Yes.
Because they had nothing.
Yes, after the last battle on the coast of, I think it was Holland, or Denmark, excuse me, I forgot the name. They came back. They were taken by, fishing boats, and the soldier that had to leave, I think it was Dirk Cook, I forgot the name I had to pronounce. Anyway, it was a famous battle before England has to completely, retreat to their homeland. to the island. And bottom line, they realized they didn't have any more guns, and they were really complete. If it wasn't for the Americans sending rifles down there, they didn't have anything to defend from an invasion. So I really believe you're true. They need to always put the last, let's say, obstacle away, because if we have now all these American people, that doesn't mean that every one of us he may have the will or the expertise to use a gun, but at least they know that we have more guns here in this country than probably the whole world put together. So even if just, let's say, 5% of us say, screw you, we're not going to go along with any invasion or any type of form of totalitarian government, they may have a problem. So I think this is another way to try to remove the first layer, because I think gun control is coming, with or without Trump. Politicians like Republicans, they make no difference, my opinion, from Democrats. And what do you think about Trump? He says something about gun control. We will talk later. You think he's into this one too?
Well, my problem is he's from New York. I said this before the election, and I'll say it again, is first of all, remember, he's from New York. Of course he has a gun. He's royalty.
Yeah.
I have no illusions about Trump before the election. It's like, well, here's the, it's certainly, neither choice were good. It's a unique thing that both characters came from New York. Mm-hmm. Well, Hillary's from Arkansas. No, when Hillary became a senator, what state was she from?
Yeah. Yes.
New York.
Yeah, and also, you were right. Trump was also on record. All their videos that I play on the air, when he was younger, 20, 15 years ago, he said, yeah, he supported like assault weapon, as they call them, gun control. And now out of the blue, we want to believe that the guy is completely become like a pro-Second Amendment. I never really believed that completely at all.
Well, the other thing is you need to have this, we need to be reasonable. See, a couple things that are popping up right now. What's the latest thing in the last 24 to 48 hours? How about 2 guns per person limit? Now, that's right out of the Handgun Control 1993 agenda to limit the possession of anything you can do to limit and restrict means that the next step is you can take half of that and then half of that or then all of that, and now you have none.
Exactly.
See, the most important thing is here, who cares? Okay, let's think about this. If a guy jumps from one car to the next, like, say, he's carjacking, and he jacks a car, and then at gunpoint, and then he grabs another car. Well, not only should we ban cars, but we should ban specific cars. Which cars did he steal? Yeah. Those are the cars we should ban.
Yeah.
He jacked a minivan, and then he jacked a Mustang, and then he even jacked a cop car.
Exactly.
We need to ban these from private possession.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing about this shooting, thank you, because let's go back to the gun control thing with this shooting. That's the thing. There's an excellent little soundbite from Minority Report. Remember the movie Minority Report?
Yes,
it's
with Tom
Cruise. It's a sci-fi piece.
Yes.
But there's a piece there where they were setting Tom Cruise up. I don't remember the character's name, but just Tom Cruise. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Where they try to set him up, and all this evidence is laying on the bed. And the one cop has actually got a brain. He goes, "This is an orgy of evidence."
Yeah.
You know how many times I've seen an orgy of evidence? And the other guy goes, "No." And he goes, "Never." Now, what we're looking at here, I don't know if you've seen the list of weapons. The whole setup, that's why this was a setup. That's why, to me, all the pieces, they always try to, like they did in California when they did the gun ban in California, they're doing a direct map out of it here. They would keep pointing at the weapons that somebody used. One guy used in a crime. Nobody else is using them in a crime, but that became a gun that had to be on the list because one guy used it in the crime.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it didn't make any difference. They put 70, 80 guns on the ban list right away. NRA comes in and plays the fake good guy. They negotiated. Now, nobody wanted to give any ground, but the NRA said, "Oh, no, we'll do this. We'll let them take 20 weapons. They won't take 78 weapons. They'll take 20 weapons. And look, we made a deal. All you got to do is just let them pass it." But here's what the NRA didn't mention is they also allowed for a clause which was introduced into the bill, which said that the moment they passed it, they could add any gun to the restriction they did. And the moment that they passed, as soon as it was signed, immediately all the guns that had been taken off the list were right back on the list within the day, of it being signed. So thinking you have a deal, you'd be an idiot. But here's the other part about this. Well, if you look at the leaked images, and if you look at how everything is laid out, literally it was as if you have a photo op for every gun that they had there.
Yeah.
Anybody notice how the guns were spread out?
Yes, and there was no brass, by the way. I didn't really, considering the volume of fire they supposedly shot, there was no really any brass there. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Well, here's another thing. Let me point something out. I've been doing this since before 1993, as far as radio goes.
Yeah.
And work with and at the national level on a massive public level. We've covered these mass shootings for 24 years plus. Okay. The Purdy shooting is probably the best example of what we tried. That was the first Prozac shooter that officially was a Prozac shooter. Now, Luca, we used to get the autopsy reports right away. Do you know how we do that? You go to the county coroner, you pay $7, $15, $20, and you get an exact copy of what the coroner put on paper. It's a public record, right?
Yes.
Okay, you know what changed? When we started looking at the autopsies, well, we had professionals we had research people from Warner Lambert right here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and from the drug companies. These are researchers who make the drugs. Mm-hmm. They develop the drugs, okay? And they told us flat out, we were able to map it out, we put it out on the air, these people were affected and in fact were using Prozac. Every one of these shooters, that's why we call them Prozac prodigies.
Yeah.
Okay? Now what happened halfway through the 90s is and when they realized we could map them out, we started. The one thing that's also consistent about the mass shooters is its points of the compass. If there's one in the west, the next one happens in the east. The next one will be in the north or the south. But if it's in the north, the next one will be in the south. Here's another thing about all these miraculous mass shooters. Why isn't there one that's a copycat or the next one that's right next to the last one?
Yeah.
Everybody pay attention to this listening and go back through the histories. There's not like if there was a guy that was crazy in, let's say, Washington, D.C., and there's another guy watching him who's crazy in Virginia. Well, since he went crazy in Washington, the other guy goes, man, I can do that. And he shoots up a place right next door. I mean, like literally 2 counties away or maybe just the next state over. That has never happened.
Yeah. No, it is something very true. Another thing important. This is the evidence. It's like so. I mean, even as somebody who is not an expert, and that's what I really realized that maybe we have a little bit of a chance here to wake up the rest. Because right now, even the average idiot out there, you start to say, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, yes, there are still people that they're living in fantasy land, but the things that were set up, their narrative is so ridiculous. Even mainstream media. At least some of the hosts, they start to have some information going through. Like, for example, Hannity, he was trying to bring on the air the security guard, Jesus, what is his name? Jesus Campos, whatever his name. And, of course, it disappeared. What do you think really, according to you, this is, of course, your opinion. We don't have all the facts. But according to you, what do you think really happened there? How many people they were shooting? At what floor they were shooting? Who you think even was this Jesus Campos or whatever is his name, this security guard? Was just an innocent bystander or maybe was part of the plot?
Number one, you couldn't get in and out of the building without everybody in the mechanism knowing what happened. The fact that this guy was ready to do a series of interviews, and they were already publicly announced. This is the mistake that, again, well, it's not a mistake so much as they realized that they couldn't allow anything to get out because there's already too much information. And anything that they say, the problem with a complicated weave like this, a complicated lie, is all it takes is on an official instrument. Remember, we consider television and radio official instruments. People do that. They do it mentally. They've been conditioned for years to that. We understand that.
Yeah.
With regard to especially these controlled media networks, okay? We're not controlled media. We're talking about subjects that are taboo. They are not allowed to talk about what we're talking about. Real quick before we go any farther, I'm going to tell you something. 24 years of doing this, never have we gotten an image of the shooter in suicide. Never.
Wow.
I'm talking guys, I don't care if it's Purdy or the dozens or 100 other, depending on how you count it, because these characters always commit suicide. The other thing is the convenience of the firearm that supposedly was chosen, which I don't believe that was a gun. If he was killed with a gun, it was something else. As far as him being killed, there's no doubt he was obviously shot. I personally think he was just a walking corpse. He was there for whatever reason.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of speculation about, all kinds of deals. Let's put it this way. He was there to be the body on the ground. That's all there is to it. You can simplify it that way. Yeah. There can be all kinds of other plot complications, but they're not relevant. The bottom line is he was in a completely controlled environment. Government and the crime syndicate control those casinos. Anything going on there beforehand is constantly monitored. I'm going to give you a little secret, little hint here you're not supposed to know about, too. When I was on the East Coast, and this is all over the country now, the individual suites are cameraed. In the smoke alarms, guys, if you pay attention, have you noticed that the regular smoke alarm you buy at home isn't what's available in those hotels? Pay attention to the smoke alarm. Smoke alarm comes down and actually looks like a ventilator or a toilet paper roll.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the size of a toilet paper stub. Okay, well, take a close look at that. It has audio pickup and it has a camera. It's a fisheye.
Wow.
Now, how do we know this? Well, I was on the East Coast years ago speaking. We went to Virginia Beach. We ended up in this hotel on the shore, and we always talk to the employees. Always talk to people. Well, this hotel had been sold and then bought and then sold, and they didn't even know who the hell the owner was, but everybody just kept working there. And they said, "Yeah, we got this crew in here," and everybody said, "I think they're government," because they're going floor to floor. And they're cameraing up every one of the hotel rooms.
Wow.
And I said, really? Now we weren't shocked. They were like, you get talking to them. Well, is there anything weird going on? I noticed a lot of guys here. And he goes, yeah, they've got this thing up on like it was the 8th floor. We were actually, it was, no, forgive me, I think it was 12th floor at that time because they said they moved it. But it was on the 12th floor, and we were on, I think, 10. And so I said, oh, well, let's go check it out. Here's what you do. You walk up, you go to the floor, you go to the room that they told you about, you knock on the door, hey, Ralph, come on. Ralph, we got to go. Ralph. And you don't leave. Act like you're drunk.
Wow.
But you're not drunk, but just talk through the door.
Wow.
Somebody's going to come to the door, right?
Yes.
So they open the door. What's inside the hotel room where you can see it? Well, this is not a hotel room. This isn't rented. Well, what's on the wall? Virtually from floor to ceiling, it was nothing but camera monitors. And every monitor had an image of a hotel room from the ceiling.
Wow.
Like you're a fly up on the ceiling looking down. My personal attitude is they have cameras in every one of those Vegas hotels. They got a big porn industry going.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did I say that?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it has been proven that the point. That's one of the most. This is exactly also for the next stage that they're trying to completely now put cameras and security and metal detector. Vegas is the most probably secure place in the world if they want to make it happen. And nothing.
It's just like Washington D.C.
Exactly.
The two are comparable.
And
Go ahead.
And it destroys their logic. Now they think they need to put more cameras. Guess what? All the cameras in the world, they are in Vegas, and they couldn't stop this because they didn't want to stop it anyway. So the point is, yes, I believe that guy, whoever it was just the body ready to be dropped there. The evidence was just for their agenda. On top, I really believe, as you said, I watch some of your posts on Facebook. This is more than just some physical thing. There is a spiritual dark side that we may believe it or not, but they do believe in this stuff. It's a human sacrifice. It's part of their cult. And I also believe, in my opinion, is something that is opening to a stage of new events they are planned for us. I mean, what do you think about this World War III scenario? Are we really close to North Korea facing a potential World War III, or maybe just more of the same?
Well, the biggest thing with Korea is Korea's never stood alone. Let's remember that. Anything that China says, ignore. Both China and Japan have invaded and reoccupied Korea for over 2,000, probably closer to 3,000 years. First of all, we need to look at the historical base, the foundational elements that are going to make up whatever happens politically or militarily. And in this case, militarily, you're looking at a condition that is not going to be tenable for China. That's their real estate, even if it's got another name on it. They consider that nothing more than an extension of their nation.
Yeah.
They do business with them, and the other half of this is, remember, if Japan were given the opportunity to be its old self, they vie for and look at that piece of real estate the same way. But they also, if there's a war, they don't want to be downrange from the next radiation event. They've already got enough problems with Fukushima as it is. For this reason, the biggest issue is, again, what are they trying to stir in the way of a bigger pot? China has, of course, the manufactured islands, which are not anything new, by the way. Before World War II, everybody did the same thing with the Pacific island complexes all over the Pacific. We did Wake Island the same way the Chinese are doing the islands they're doing right now. We developed Wake Island as a waypoint for Pan Am, which was a spook and kook company for spy and transport. and then we had a military base there as a waylay point or a jump point. And we most of the people that were at Wake Island before the war, but that were actually there when the battle started, were private contractors doing exactly what the Chinese are doing right now off the coast of China.
Yeah.
They're not going to allow their backyard to get pissed in any more than we would, although we seem to get our backyard pissed in a lot.
Yeah.
With certain things, and we let it slide. But it's interesting that, again, all of these things, the way they're orchestrated, certain people don't want to participate. Others are going to probably step aside while they let us, again, toast our fingers. Korea is not a threat to us. I mean, this is the problem. We have to go around the world and piss in their pool to cause a problem for Korea.
No, I agree. I think you're right. I mean, this is so much now. We have been so brainwashed that we're supposed to be in every country and become the police, the policemen of the world. If people really think, especially the conservative people out there, that they think it's all national security, become the policemen of the world, maybe they need to remember one of the most, I think, probably important figures in our history. Our first president, at least not real the first, but the first official president, President George Washington, in his farewell speech. I mean, exactly the opposite of what's happening right now. He told us, don't start. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, of course. Don't go out there and mind other people's business. Trade with everybody, but don't become, their puppets, or don't do this sort of strange allegiances. And now we forgot that, and that's the new type of conservative people out there, neocons, whatever you want to call themselves. One thing I was going to ask you, is it possible really that Trump is going to be the fall guy? Because after all this has been like a big web, been set up the last probably 30, 40, 50 years. But for sure, after 8 years of Obama, we have come to a point that we are weaker. We are to this point that, we've been in more wars, Syria, and we irritated Russia pretty much, and everything else. And finally, the sparkle that created this sort of a final conflict to destroy us, or at least giving the opportunity to the enemies. You remember the speech of, the FBI informant for the, Weather Underground, when pretty much their plan was, in this meeting, Larry, I forgot the last name, anyway, the guy that told us that he was attending this meeting, and the Weather Underground goal was to have occupying forces of other countries. They are pretty much, they were somehow sympathetic to the ideology of communism on U.S. soil. How do you bring them? You bring them if you lose the war, like happens, in other countries. Is it possible we are getting to this point right now, in your opinion?
Well, yeah, one of the things that they are hoping to do by creating the division, using the organic sandbag communists and the communists that are inside the regime. The bureaucracy has had 24 years of permeation of Soviet occupation. We had the direct Clintonista, occupation. We had the neocons who did nothing to get rid of, and in fact proceeded, just like we're seeing with Trump now, 1 year later after his coming to power, or at least since his election, because it's October headed to November. We had 8 years of Obama / the Supreme Soviet, who I personally think he believes himself to either be Lenin or the next Stalin.
Yeah.
That's why he's waiting in the wings. Look at Hillary as maybe the Lenin, because she's of ill health. They're propping her up with sticks. They still let her, beat feet and run around a little bit, but there's nothing behind her. On the other hand, they can bring Bummer out to get the violence that they need and to promote it the way they did with the Red Terror, which is what's waiting in the wings right now for the internal action. Now, from the external standpoint, let's remember that this government is in cooperation with anywhere from 24 to 27 foreign national powers to come in and occupy the United States.
Yeah.
We've had a series of training exercises they denied for years, but last year, 2016, first time they put it in public address, the 27th annual multinational Great Plains, training exercise. It was supposed to only be, normally be like a couple of weeks. It's always been at least 5 weeks. We know that because I've had people on the ground that trained there with the Army.
Wow.
Okay? Each year, there are different combinations, but it's the same core group of foreign powers who come in to practice gun confiscation, separation and categorization of men, women, and children, occupation and searching of houses and properties, checkpoints, the whole 9 yards, just like you see with the cooperative nugget exercises at Fort Polk, Louisiana, which we have copies of. We have people that went in, they recorded hours, days of video. And the whole theme is always search and seizure, confiscation of guns, taking of men, women, and children as prisoners, checkpoints and control points, the whole 9 yards. Now, that's despite all the garbage where they claim that they're fighting at one end. This intercooperation is constantly been in motion and is in place right now. The Poles, who should know better, would be occupying the Chicago area, the Illinois area.
Wow.
Several of these countries, in fact, they have. If you go to look at Chicago, they have an interlocutory cooperative agreement for Polish occupation, for Polish foreign troops. They've already had training exercises for years, and it's been repeated over and over again. When we had Katrina, we had Mexican military drive across the Mexican border, not fly. They drove from Texas, through Texas, to Louisiana, and in fact, they're in the photo ops with, George Bush.
Yeah.
They're right there. You can dig these photos out, guys. In one instance, they had them right up front because they're the shortest troops of the bunch. They're only 5'2" to 5'4", and they had Dutch troops there. Well, the Dutch troops are an average of 6'2".
Yeah.
So what did they do? They put the Mexicans, for many of the photo ops, they had the multinational forces standing there with Bush in a room. They put the Mexicans in the back for the pictures they were going to give to you and me. They had the Mexicans up front in the international images showing the Mexicans, the Dutch, and other foreign troops that were available that came in by ship from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So we already have not only field training exercises, but we have an example of what are the next step actual physical deployments for attack and occupation, which is exactly what they were practicing.
And I would like to remind this, something that I've been talking over and over, and it's pretty amazing to think, as you said, we play that Russian is our enemies, at least, during the Obama administration. And then, there was this document, there was an official document signed by FEMA that they will have this agreement with the Russian militaries in case of any type of national emergency on U.S. soil. They would use Russian troops to keep the peace. And this is something that many people think it's crazy, but it's there. It was on FEMA website. Are you familiar with the document, this agreement?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
well, actually, years ago when we did American Peril, that's one of the first videos we made where we
yes, I remember
out
that.
in the open.
Yes.
One of the things that we got to point out is that the intercooperative agreements are at several different stratas, so that on the one hand you can continue to stir the pot, create the general confusion, or create the angst and concern, and if need be, they hit the switch and they get a bunch of us killed. Mm-hmm. The peons, okay, we peons are the ones who end up bleeding and dying. On the other hand, the basic mechanism, by the time everything in the dust settles, they can. Well, like we're seeing right now with Vegas, you sculpt the story as needed. Then you can even bring the people in you were blaming, eventually bring them in as ground troops. A cooperative nugget, I think it's important to understand, attitude is everything.
Yeah.
When they were doing the house-to-house search and seizures in cooperative nugget, and it's a cracker box type American farmhouse, the referees were all American military personnel, all dressed as, by the way, they said it didn't have anything to do with the UN, but all the American troops that were the referees and the advisors were all dressed as UN police, with UN police insignia and marked badge ID, with printed out photo ID on their chest.
Wow.
Okay, in UN colors. Now, they did a repeat. A part of the training exercise, we have what we call tack lanes. Well, the search and seizure phase, they were supposed to go into the room, into the building, and every time they go into the building, the group would be given a class on bringing the women and the kids out, the American women and kids and the American dads, and they were going to separate the prisoners there, and then they do the searching, of course, the initial search, and then they process the families as prisoners. Well, they were all told how to do it. Now, when the Romanians went in, Romanians did exactly what they were told to do. They came out with prisoners. When the Czechs went in, now the Czechs were there, guys. They went in. They did exactly what they were told to do. Then the Russians go in.
Mm-hmm.
There's gunfire, and there's no prisoners coming out.
Wow.
And the guy looks at the cameraman looks at the American referee who's looking at his shoes and won't look at the camera. He goes, "Where are the prisoners? Why don't they have any prisoners coming out? Why aren't there any prisoners coming out?" And he looks down at his shoes and he mumbles, "They're shooting all the prisoners."
Wow.
And he goes, "Wait a minute, that's not part of the class. That's not," because he's rubbing it in. He's got to qualify it. If you don't say something, guys, people aren't going to figure it out. So that's not part of the class. That's not what they were supposed to do. And the guy finally he turns away. He won't look at the camera. He's looking at his feet. He's got his hands in his hands at his crotch level. He's got them crossed. He's got them just holding his hands together, and he won't say anything more. Now, that part of the exercise goes to the next country, which was, I think, the next one was Hungary, and they do what they're supposed to do. And then the French, and they do what they're supposed to do. And then the British go in. And you know what? The British did the exact same thing that the Russians did. They executed everybody in the building.
Wow. Well,
Now, this is a training exercise.
Yeah.
And you know what the Russian officer said? He didn't even speak. He couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
They said, they asked him, he said, "Well, wait a minute. This wasn't part of the course. This isn't what you were told to do or you were instructed to do by your commanders, by the international commanders that are in charge of you." And he goes, "You guys do things your way. We're going to do it our way when the time comes."
Wow.
And the British officer said the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. This is that's why they want to start to use, this almost it's a brainwashing situation. I mean, that's why every time there is like a situation in Texas, like, oh, let's have the Mexican troops. Why don't you want help from Mexico? This is not about help. First of all, I think we should have enough help. We help in the rest of the world. We should have help to help each other here. We don't need foreign help. But more important, this is not about help. When you have somebody coming up with a uniform, military uniform, it's already become like a decent, almost like being prepared mentally to accept this for the next time that will happen. So this is exactly where they've been trying to get used to it. The only question is exactly when. And unfortunately, we wish we knew exactly, but it could happen anytime, Mark, in my opinion. I mean, at this point,
I think they're chomping at the bit right now. I think the biggest problem they've got, here it is, the 14th. I think we were supposed to have, the 2 days after the Vegas incident, there was supposed to be another one. Because when they do this, they'll do this and bang the gong means it has to be so quick that by the time you have one shock, you get the next punch. Think about it. You've been into any kind of martial arts, whatever you're into, guys. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yes.
When you learn a kata, you're learning a series of actions that take you to a final dramatic strike. That strike is what all of the other strikes are leading up to. It can be a punch, it can be a kick, it can be any kind of different thrust. It can be motion, just moving towards the opponent forces the opponent to move.
Yes.
But you're doing this to get to a final punch. Now you can't give the guy any time to think about that last punch. The idea is, what's the term they use? It's a flurry.
Yes.
Well, what's a flurry? It's where you get hit, and then that last big jab comes, and you've got that pounder right up underneath the jaw, and you took the jaw and drove it right up into that ganglia nerves there, and the guy's lights go out. His bell just got rung.
Well, at this point, you're right. They could have done more. Maybe it was just another piece by piece. At this point, we will see pretty soon. I am concerned, as I said, that this could be just the first plan of almost a symbolic, as you said, religious opening to something more majestic, bigger. I mean, all they need to do now really to get an EMP in the country and blame it on Korea, and then we're going to go back to a Jericho scenario, pretty much the movie.
Right. The issue is whether or not we speak up, guys. There's no reason for us to be in that situation. We have the technology. We have better technology and more overlapping generations than ever before in the history of this country. We don't go back to the Stone Age, and in fact, that's the other thing. Thank you for bringing up Jericho. Jericho was designed to teach you what not to do, well, actually teach you the wrong way to do it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Example, remember in the very early phase of the series Jericho, they go to the radio guy. What is the radio guy depicted as? A crazy person. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Guys, have you ever met a radio operator that was crazy or just a radio operator that was a geek? Most all of us that ever worked on ham radios are a little bit of a geek. But that's not crazy. But they tried to depict that he's a crazy guy.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. It is most likely, and in fact, it's more likely, that of all your technology that's going to survive, it's going to be your ham radio operators and anybody who's into radio who knows what to do to protect against EMP, which we do. Most important is, most of your equipment is going to be shut off. I mean, a percentage is always shut off. But here's the other thing. like we've talked about, and you all need to be thinking the same way, backups to backups to backups.
Yeah.
You want it in such a way that, oh, is this one burned out? Well, hell, this was dirt cheap. Wait a minute, I've got 6 more brand new in the box.
Yeah.
And they're already shielded, so I reach over into my box, and I don't pull all 6 of them out.
Yeah.
Each of us just pulls another one out, and now we're not in the Stone Age. Now we're talking to each other just like you and I are talking to each other at the local level. Half the battle is not having to shout, but instead being able to talk.
Listen, Mark, I need to thank you, and thank you for your time and your input. I appreciate it. It took more than I thought, but I didn't want to let you go. It's hard sometimes to find each other with the different hours. And let's be in touch. Let's pray that the next few weeks more Americans will wake up, and people from around the world, because I believe this is not just an American problem. Globalism, it will try to attack every country to put us, in fear. And when we have fear, we will submit, and eventually they think that we're going to give our rights away. So thank you, Mark. Be in touch. And by the way, say again where people can listen to your show and every way they can find you, please.
We're on Monday through Friday. In the morning, we're on themicroeffect.com from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. We're also on libertytreeradio.4mg.com at the same time in the morning. And we're also in the evening from 5 to 7 and from 8 to 9 Eastern Time in the evening. We do 3 hours in the evening, Monday through Friday also.
Very good, Mark.
And that's it.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, say hi to your lady. Please do me a favor. I'll send you a text now. Write me. I forgot your address. Send me your address. I have some Scotty coffee for you and your lady. Okay.
Oh, very good. Actually, hopefully we've been sending people your way because for all of you listeners, if you're not buying Zanna coffee, you're not buying coffee.
I appreciate it. Let's send me again the PM, the address where I can send. I want to be sure I got the right PO box. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Very good.
My best to your lady. All right, guys. This is pretty much kind of crazy today, but I needed to have. I wanted really to have his input. And be tuned. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom. Ready for our number 3. Do not go away.